They told us there was nothing in the palace. Just another abandoned relic of Saddam's regime. Intel said it was clear. No insurgents, no booby traps, nothing but dust and echoes. They were wrong. There was something waiting for us there. Something ancient. Something patient. My name is Hunter Reed, former Marine Corps Staff Sergeant, attached to a specialized reconnaissance unit during Operation Iraqi Freedom. What I'm about to tell you has been classified under a designation that doesn't officially exist. But classification doesn't matter much to a dying man. The doctors give me 3 months, maybe 4. Before I go, someone needs to know what happened. It was July 2003, 4 months after the initial invasion. Baghdad had fallen, but the country was far from secure. My unit received orders to investigate one of Saddam's lesser-known palaces on the outskirts of Baghdad. Intelligence suggested it might contain hidden documents related to weapons programs or insurgent communications. Our team consisted of 6 Marines. Myself, Lieutenant Noah Davidson, Corporal Thomas Mercer, Lance Corporals Gabriel Ortiz and Isaiah Washington, and our combat medic, Aiden Foster. We were joined by Fareed, our Iraqi interpreter, and Malik, a local guide who claimed to have worked in the palace before the war. The palace wasn't grand like the ones you saw on TV. It was older, more fortress than showpiece, built on foundations that Malik said dated back to the Ottoman Empire. As we approached at dusk, I noticed Fareed growing increasingly agitated. Something wrong? I asked him. He hesitated before responding. This place, it has a reputation among locals. What kind of reputation? They say Saddam built here because he believed it would grant him power. But the old people, they warned him. They say this ground is forbidden. Noah overheard and scoffed. Let me guess, it's haunted? Fareed didn't smile. Worse than haunted, Lieutenant. The old stories say a king once stood here, a king who made pacts with things that should not be named. Malik nodded solemnly. My grandfather told tales of workers who disappeared during construction. Saddam had their families executed to prevent rumors. Well, the only thing we need to worry about is insurgents, Noah said firmly. Let's move. The interior was a maze of corridors and chambers, ornate but decaying. Most rooms were empty, stripped of anything valuable. We methodically swept the west wing before moving deeper into the central structure. The sun had set completely, and despite our tactical lights, shadows seemed to cling to the corners with unusual persistence. I first noticed something off when we entered what appeared to be an office. The room temperature dropped dramatically, our breath suddenly visible in the beam of our flashlights. On the wall hung a massive painting of Saddam, but something was wrong with it. The eyes seemed to follow us, and the proportions of the face were subtly distorted. Is it just me, or is it fucking freezing in here? Gabriel whispered. And does that painting look weird to anyone else? Thomas added. Malik approached the painting, studying it closely. This is not right. This room was a storage area, not an office. And this frame. He ran his fingers along the ornate golden frame, pressing something that made a soft click. The painting swung outward, revealing a hidden passage. Jackpot, Noah said. This is exactly what we're looking for. Beyond the passage was a narrow staircase descending deep underground. The air grew colder with each step, carrying a strange odor, like copper and something else I couldn't identify. Something organic and ancient. At the bottom, we discovered a large circular chamber lined with stone that looked far older than the palace above. The walls were covered in strange symbols. Not Arabic, not Persian, something older. In the center stood a stone altar, and surrounding it were 7 stone pedestals, each holding what appeared to be ancient clay jars. Fareed approached the symbols, his flashlight trembling. This is not possible, he whispered. These are Sumerian but wrong. Corrupted. Can you read them? I asked. Parts. This speaks of the 7 who watch. And here, their eyes shall open when the stars align. Great, ancient Mesopotamian mumbo-jumbo, Thomas muttered. but I noticed his knuckles were white around his rifle. Noah approached the altar. Whatever this is, we need to document it and search for any hidden documents. Then take photos. Isaiah, check those containers. The rest of you, secure the perimeter. Isaiah cautiously approached one of the clay jars. It was sealed with wax bearing a symbol similar to an eye. Should I open it? Before anyone could answer, Malik shouted, "No." His voice echoed through the chamber. Those are not meant to be disturbed. These are soul containers. We're not here for a history lesson, Noah snapped. We have orders to search for intelligence. Lieutenant, I said quietly, maybe we should listen to him. Too late. Isaiah had already broken the seal on one jar. A sound filled the chamber, not quite a whisper, not quite a scream, somewhere horrifically in between. The air around the jar seemed to ripple, and Isaiah staggered back, dropping it. The clay shattered on the stone floor. Nothing happened for 3 heartbeats. Then Isaiah gasped, clutching at his eyes. I can't see. I can't? He screamed, a sound of pure agony that cut off abruptly as he collapsed. Aiden rushed to him. He's breathing but unconscious. Pupils are. Jesus Christ. We gathered around. Isaiah's pupils had expanded until his entire eyes were black, without whites. Then, as we watched, his eyes opened again, impossibly wide, the lids tearing at the corners as the eyeballs swelled. What the fuck? Gabriel stumbled back. Malik was praying rapidly in Arabic. Farid translated in a shaking voice. He says we have released one of the watchers. We must leave immediately. We're not leaving him, Noah insisted, but Malik was already running for the stairs. That's when Isaiah's body began to change. His skin rippled, bones cracking as his limbs elongated. His jaw dislocated, mouth stretching into a gaping maw. But worst were the eyes. They kept growing, bulging from the sockets, multiplying across his forehead, opening along his cheeks, his neck, his hands. Eyes. Dozens of them. All blinking. All seeing. Thomas opened fire. The bullets tore into Isaiah's transforming body, but black ichor sprayed instead of blood. The thing that had been Isaiah lurched upright with inhuman speed, seizing Thomas by the throat. More eyes opened across its fingers as they dug into his skin. Noah and I fired simultaneously, emptying our magazines into the creature. It released Thomas, who collapsed, gasping and clawing at his neck where dark veins were already spreading from the handprints. Run! I shouted. Everyone up the stairs now! We retreated, Gabriel helping Thomas while Aiden and Noah provided covering fire. The creature didn't pursue immediately. It seemed more interested in the remaining clay jars, approaching them with an awful reverence. Halfway up the stairs, Thomas began convulsing. His eyes rolled back, then forward again, entirely black. Gabriel tried to hold him, but Thomas's arm shot out with impossible strength, fingers elongating as they wrapped around Gabriel's face. I didn't hesitate. I put a bullet through Thomas's head. Gabriel stared at me in shock, blood and black ichor dripping down his face where Thomas's transformed fingers had punctured his skin. Keep moving, I ordered, but I could already see the darkness spreading across Gabriel's eyes. We made it to the office level when Gabriel collapsed. His body contorted, bones snapping as more eyes began opening across his skin. Noah tried to drag him, but I pulled him back. He's gone, I said. We have to contain this. Noah understood. We retreated beyond the office door and sealed it, pushing furniture against it as inhuman screams echoed from within. Farid's face was ashen. We must destroy this place. All of it. Agreed, Noah said grimly. But we need to warn Command first. This could be a biological weapon. We never got the chance to call it in. As we moved toward the palace entrance, we found Malik's body sprawled across the marble floor. His eyes, now just empty sockets, had apparently burst outward. Above him, one of the ornate ceiling fixtures had transformed, a mass of blinking eyes embedded in what had looked like crystal teardrops moments before. The palace was changing around us. Eyes opened in the wallpaper, in the marble floors, in the very air itself, shimmering distortions that blinked and tracked our movements. "They're watching us," Aiden whispered, "learning from us." We made a desperate break for the exit. Halfway across the grand entrance hall, Aiden screamed. He'd looked directly into one of the floating eyes. He clawed at his face as darkness spread across his scara. Noah didn't hesitate. He put Aiden down with a clean headshot. Only Noah, Fareed, and I made it outside. We could see the transformation spreading through the palace. Windows becoming massive eyes, the very architecture reshaping itself into something organic and watching. "What's the containment protocol for this?" Fareed asked, his voice breaking. Noah made the call. Within 30 minutes, an airstrike reduced the palace to rubble. We told ourselves it was over. It wasn't. 3 days later, Noah reported seeing eyes in his bathroom mirror. By the end of the week, he'd taken his own life. Fareed disappeared on his way to debrief at the Green Zone. I was quarantined and debriefed for weeks. They found nothing physically wrong with me, but I know better. I see them sometimes, just at the edge of my vision. Watching. Waiting. The doctors attribute my cancer to toxic exposure, but I know what's really growing inside me. The 7 jars. We only broke one. They're still out there, those other 6 watchers, hidden in the rubble or rescued by those who know their worth. And the one we released is still watching, through every eye it can possess. So be careful what you look at too closely. Be careful whose gaze you meet. And if you ever see an eye where there shouldn't be one, run. Because they're looking for new vessels. And they've seen us now. I don't sleep much these days. Not since what happened in Al-Qaim. The military shrinks call it PTSD, but they weren't there. They didn't see what we saw. They didn't hear those whispers. My name is Caleb Mitchell, former Staff Sergeant, U.S. Army, 3rd Infantry Division. What I'm about to tell you is classified under Operation Desert Phantom, a designation that doesn't officially exist. After 16 years of nightmares, I don't care about classification anymore. People need to know what's out there. It was April 2003, 3 weeks after the initial invasion. My unit, a specialized reconnaissance team, was deployed to Al-Qaim, a dusty border town near Syria where intelligence suggested high-value targets were hiding. There were 8 of us, myself, Lieutenant Noah Reynolds, Specialists Isaiah Washington and Gabriel Rodriguez, Corporals Thomas Hayes and Hunter Collins, our combat medic Aiden Cooper, and our Iraqi interpreter, Tariq. The mission was simple: secure and search an abandoned archaeological complex on the outskirts of town. Satellite imagery showed unusual activity in the area at night, and command thought it might be insurgents using ancient tunnels to smuggle weapons. We arrived at dusk, the setting sun casting long shadows across crumbling Mesopotamian ruins. The place was ancient, far older than the war, older than America itself. Stone foundations and half-collapsed walls from some forgotten civilization, with newer Ottoman-era structures built on top. "This place gives me the creeps," Thomas said, adjusting his night vision. "Just focus on the mission," Noah replied, though I noticed his voice was tighter than usual. Tariq, our interpreter, seemed especially uncomfortable. He was a Baghdad University archaeology student before the war, educated and typically unflappable. "What's wrong?" I asked him. "This is Al-Sukuan," he said quietly. "The place of stillness. There are stories about this place, very old stories." "What kind of stories?" Gabriel asked. Tariq hesitated. "The kind mothers tell children to keep them from wandering at night." Isaiah laughed. "Man, every culture's got those. The boogeyman's international." "Not like this," Tariq said. "The old people say there was a temple here once, where they worshipped something beneath the earth. Something that hungered." "Cut the ghost stories," Noah ordered. "We've got a job to do." We split into 2 teams. Noah took Isaiah, Gabriel, and Aiden to investigate the eastern structures while I led Thomas, Hunter, and Tariq to check the western ruins, which featured a partially collapsed entrance to what looked like an underground chamber. The night vision bathed everything in that eerie green glow as we carefully descended stone steps worn smooth by thousands of years of foot traffic. The air grew noticeably colder, with a strange metallic smell that reminded me of blood. "This place is older than the visible ruins," Tariq whispered, running his hand along hieroglyphs that weren't quite Sumerian or Babylonian. "These symbols, I've never seen their like before." Hunter swept his rifle light across the walls. "What do they say?" "I cannot translate directly, but this repeated symbol appears to be a warning. Something about the sleeping ones." Thomas snorted. "Great. Ancient Iraqi zombie apocalypse." "Show some respect," I said sharply. "This civilization was building cities while our ancestors were still living in caves." We reached a large circular chamber about 30 feet across. The walls were covered in more of those strange symbols, and the floor featured an intricate mosaic depicting humanoid figures bowing before a massive, tentacled form emerging from a pit. "That's unsettling," Hunter muttered. Tariq was trembling now. "We should not be here, Sergeant. This is a bad place." I was about to respond when my radio crackled. Noah's voice came through, distorted with static. "Caleb, Eastern Section, found something, need you to—" The transmission cut off. I tried to respond, but got nothing but static. "Comms are down," I said. "Thomas, stay here with Tariq." "Hunter, you're with me. We're going to find the others." As we turned to leave, Tariq grabbed my arm. His eyes were wide with fear. "Do you not hear them?" he whispered. I was about to ask what he meant when I noticed it. A faint whispering sound, like multiple voices speaking in hushed tones just at the edge of hearing. The hairs on my neck stood up. "It's just the wind," Hunter said, but his voice lacked conviction. We made our way back to the surface and hurried toward the eastern ruins. The night had grown unnaturally dark, with clouds obscuring the moon and stars. Our night vision equipment started to malfunction, the image flickering and distorting. We found Noah alone, standing motionless before a stone doorway. "Lieutenant," I called out. "Where are the others?" He turned slowly. His face was expressionless, eyes unfocused. "They went inside," he said flatly. "They heard their names being called." "By who?" I demanded. "By whatever's been waiting here." Noah's voice had an odd cadence, almost like he was reciting something. "It's been so patient, Caleb. So hungry." I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the night air. "Noah, we need to find the others and get the hell out of here." "It's too late for that," he replied with a smile that wasn't his own. "They've awakened it." Before I could respond, a scream echoed from beyond the doorway, Gabriel's voice, twisted with terror. Hunter and I rushed past Noah, who made no move to follow. Beyond the doorway was a narrow corridor leading to another chamber. The air grew thick and difficult to breathe, heavy with that metallic scent. We found Isaiah first, huddled in a corner, rocking back and forth. His eyes were wide, his mouth moving without sound. When I touched his shoulder, he screamed. "The walls were breathing," he gasped. "They were breathing, and Aiden walked right into them." Further in we found Gabriel. He was staring upward, shaking violently. "Do you see them?" he whispered. "Hanging from the ceiling. All those faces. So many faces." I looked up but saw only darkness and stone. Hunter grabbed Gabriel's arm. "We're leaving. Now." That's when the whispering became louder, clearly audible now, an overlapping chorus of voices speaking what seemed like dozens of languages simultaneously. Among them, I recognized names, our names, spoken with a terrible intimacy. "Get them out," I ordered Hunter. "I'll find Aiden." The chamber opened into a larger space dominated by a circular pit in the center. The air seemed to pulse, and the whispers grew to a deafening roar. I found Aiden standing at the edge of the pit, peering down. When he turned to me, his face was wet with tears, but he was smiling. "It knows us, Caleb," he said. "It knows everything about us. Every secret. Every fear. Aiden, we need to go." He shook his head. "You don't understand. It's shown me things. Beautiful, terrible things." I grabbed his arm, but he jerked away with unexpected strength, nearly sending me into the pit. As I regained my balance, I glanced down into the darkness. There was movement there, something vast shifting in depths that seemed to extend far deeper than the physical structure should allow. I caught glimpses of pale, writhing forms and faces, human faces, embedded within undulating masses of flesh. "What the hell is that?" I gasped. "The sleeping ones," Aiden said reverently. "Though they're awake now, thanks to us. They've been here since before mankind walked upright, waiting for suitable vessels." His voice had changed, becoming deeper, resonant with strange harmonics. When he smiled again, his teeth seemed too numerous, too sharp. "You're not Aiden," I said, raising my rifle. "I am," he replied. "Just more than Aiden now. And soon you'll be more too." Something moved in the shadows behind him. A figure that might have once been human but was now twisted, elongated, its limbs bending at impossible angles. I caught a glimpse of Noah's face, distorted in a rictus of pain and ecstasy. I fired 3 rounds into the thing that had been my lieutenant. It staggered back but didn't fall. Aiden lunged at me, his fingers elongated into claw-like appendages. I fired again, catching him in the chest, sending him tumbling into the pit. A howl rose from the darkness, not of pain, but of triumph. I ran. I ran until I found Hunter dragging Isaiah and Gabriel toward the entrance. Thomas and Tariq were nowhere to be seen. The others? Hunter gasped. "Gone," I said. "We need to get out now." We made it to our Humvees as the ground began to tremble. Behind us, the ruins seemed to shift and ripple, stone flowing like liquid. As we drove away, I glanced in the rearview mirror and saw figures emerging from the site, twisted, wrong-angled silhouettes that had once been our comrades. The official report stated that we encountered insurgents using chemical weapons, resulting in hallucinations and the deaths of 4 team members. Tariq was listed as a casualty, though his body was never recovered. The 3 survivors besides myself, Hunter, Isaiah, and Gabriel, were discharged on psychological grounds within a year. Isaiah committed suicide 6 months later. Gabriel disappeared in 2008. Hunter is the only one I still speak with. Like me, he knows what really happened. We've tracked similar incidents over the years, archaeological sites where people vanish or return, changed. Whatever awakened in Al-Qaim that night is spreading. Sometimes, in my dreams, I hear Aiden's voice among the whispers. He tells me they're patient, they're ancient, and they know our names. They're still calling.